This is Neat and Mixed from Hops and Spirits.
Oh, we are in a treat, or we have a treat for you. See, I can't even talk already. This is going to be a great show. So we've got a treat for you. We go into the true spirits world here on Neat and Mixed, and we're having a flight night with someone that's made some cool cocktails. She might be better known as a chef. So Brandon, should we just welcome her in and say hi to Amanda Freitag, the creator of Freitag Cocktails, world-renowned chef, and author as well. Welcome in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
This is a pleasure. I mean, we got a Food Network celebrity here. Let's go.
I think so.
Yeah.
Who likes to eat and drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good combination, I think. I mean, they go pretty well together.
Yeah, I don't like to do one without the other.
Neither do we.
But we will probably tonight only at least do one. Brandon, you've got the bottle, so we're just going to get right into the first cocktail. We got the Negroni, right?
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about it?
There it is. It looks beautiful, that bottle.
Yeah.
Yes, so the Negroni is one of my favorite ways to start off the night, kick it off before the meal begins, and it's made up of our own infused vermouth. We use an aperitivo that is a little more bitter than a Campari, and of course gin. And there's a lot of orange notes in there, which is what I wanted. A little bit of cherry, and obviously a lot of herbaceous bitter notes. We have bitters in there. We have our own vermouth in there, and it hits you. It's a nice edge. You know, it's bitter, it's sweet. It's got some heat from the gin, and it's meant to start you off, get the palate going, get the juices flowing, get you hungry, and get you relaxed to start the night, to start the meal. And, it has a lot of really interesting notes. It's not as viscous or as sweet as a typical Negroni would be, that would be poured at your bar, which is what I like about it. I tend to not like sweet cocktails at all. And Negroni is typically equal parts gin, Campari, and vermouth. And Campari and vermouth are sweet. So we wanted to make our own, infuse our own, so it could be really balanced and a little bit on the bitter side.
Yep. I do get the bitter.
I was gonna say when you're smelling it, you can kind of get that spice and that almost that bitter on the smell, which is interesting because, like you said, normally you would think sweeter side, but
Yeah. Well, there's a lot, there's a lot of herbal notes in gin, and then so we wanted to match it with that aperitivo that has a little touch of cherry, almost a little bit of candy in there, but then, really smooth it out with sort of more of those like roots and herbs and bitter notes. And that starts the meal bitter, sweet, and then it's usually paired with something salty. Like if you're sitting in a cafe somewhere in Italy before your meal, they're gonna serve you a bowl of potato chips and some olives while you're having your Negroni, because that's just every flavor at once, and that's how you kind of get going. And
I love it.
it's boozy. It's boozy AF. We wanted to make our cocktails a little bit booze forward because ready to pour cocktails to me are a little low in alcohol, high in sugar, and I wanted this to be for the craft cocktail drinker.
Yep.
yeah, because I was gonna say, I mean, a 60 proof, 30% ABV is well higher than the 6.5, 6.7 that typically see, and even then, the highest ones you really see in a can or whatever is maybe 11, 12. So you're well above above that.
Yeah. And I also wanted it to be something really unique because it's a beautiful bottle. It's at its highest in any store, $24.99. You get 4 solid, if not more, cocktails out of that because the margarita you definitely need to shake on ice. Sometimes I'll shake the Negroni. And then it's a great gift. Instead of bringing a bottle of wine, you bring a bottle of Negronis over, and it's even better because then that's the way you start. you don't have to have 3 different bottles of alcohol. It's just all in one. So I really wanted it to be that way. And hey, if you wanted to make 6 drinks and you want to, really ice it up, you can do that too. And you're still getting, a really beautiful cocktail.
Now, Brandon, you're our cocktail expert. What's your thoughts here? You're more than more than me.
Yeah.
You make more cocktails than I do.
No, for the just say for the everyday family or whatever that's making this at home. Now, for me, as being a seasoned drinker, like this is great. Like just as it is. It is bitter forward, but I love that.
Yeah.
Now, I think you might have mentioned it earlier, but just for all the fans that maybe who are listening that might have missed it, what fruit would you pair for this to give it, just to cut the edge of the bitterness out a little bit?
Classically, a Negroni is served with an orange peel, but I actually like to put an orange wedge in mine. Especially the the Freitag cocktail. You really need that freshness of some of the orange juice in there. I like to stir it around while I'm drinking, and by the end of my cocktail, I eat the orange wedge, which is a fun treat because it's soaked in boozy Negroni by the time you take a bite.
That's my favorite thing about an old fashioned. Just wait to the end and eat the cherry, right?
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah.
And then we have turned that Negroni into a Negroni slushy, like a frozen Negroni, which is fantastic. You put that Negroni with some ice in the blender, maybe a splash of orange juice if you want, and it's delicious. And we've also I had an event last night where we made it what we call sabaliato, which is a Italian term for taking Negroni or any kind of a bitter aperitivo and putting it with prosecco. So you put it over ice, a splash of prosecco. Prosecco has a sweetness to it, and it takes a little bit of that bitter edge off, and it gets a little effervescent. And it's a great way to start. If you don't want to add another alcohol, you can just do it with club soda or sparkling water.
And for me, this is just me, and this this could be completely left field or whatever, but I would sprinkle a little bit of sea salt in this if it was me.
Yes,
so a little bit of just a little sea salt, a little bit of orange, and we're gonna have a good time.
Yes, yeah, and then that's why it's classically paired with salty snacks.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah,
you're looking for that saltiness. Yeah.
See, Brandon, I just love how you were like, no, I don't know anything about. As I'm just sitting here, just shaking my head, going, "This, I like it," and you're just like, "I'll sprinkle a little sea salt." Like, Mr. Modest.
Sorry, I like to cook. My bad. Sorry.
Oh, me too. Hey, we got a lot of
I know, right? Yeah. Cheers.
Hey, I'm working on it. I'm working on the cooking part. Now, I do. When you think of your name, Amanda Freitag, the initials, are the AF. When did you realize that you could have a lot of fun with those initials and trademark that?
It took me a really long time, Jonathan. I didn't think I was cool for a really long time. And then I started working with my marketing manager back in 2019, and we were doing these cooking videos. And we were like, what should we call these? We're putting them on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. And I said, I really want them to be easy and approachable and fun. And he was like, what about Easy AF? And I was like, wait a minute, that's brilliant. And so the AF became part of what we were, using for a lot of our products. We use it for the videos. I have a spice line that's out, so we brand the AF, and then we worked on the cocktails, and we wanted to call them Freitag Cocktails, just because we like the name, obviously. But then we have the little AF logo on there, and some people who don't like the insinuation, it's my initials. It's my initials.
I love it.
It doesn't mean anything but that, unless you want to make it that.
I love it.
Like we said, we have fun with it. Easy AF, boozy AF, spicy AF, tasty AF. There's a million ways to go. Yeah.
I love it. I saw it. I was on your website today, and I was just, browsing around, and I saw that, because, I had the bottles already, but I just hadn't really, I hadn't paid attention that much to the bottles. But I was on the website just looking around, and I saw that. And I was like, that is absolutely perfect that you guys come up with that.
It took me a
Like,
long
that's awesome.
time before I knew I was cool. It took a young marketing manager,
That is cool. That's cool.
right?
That's
Hey,
really cool.
well, it worked out because, and like you said, it works because whether it's food and it's easy, as your name is, or if it's boozy as,
Yes.
like, because that's how you played it up. I mean, the cocktails really are, like I said, that 60 proof, 30 ABV is very, very high for
Yes.
a bottled canned cocktail. So I love it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've been running with it.
I think people really appreciate it. And, as a chef, obviously, I like to put together flavors. And for many, many years, I love to play with cocktails. And so as cocktails were becoming more popular, when I was working full time in restaurants, I would always work with the bar manager and the sommelier and whoever was, creating the cocktail list to, put together flavors and, come in the kitchen, play around. Do you want to make a juice? Do you want to dehydrate something? You want to, marinate something? You want to juice something? Like, it makes sense. The kitchen and the bar are just, there shouldn't be a wall between those two places. That's where you get all the
Never.
good stuff in the kitchen, and I love to play with cocktails that way. And, for me, I always want to taste whatever the base alcohol is. If it's a tequila, you want to get that peppery note from it. You want to feel that. If it's gin, you want to taste all those herbs. If it's vodka, it's just then what is surrounding the vodka. So, and obviously, if it's bourbon or whiskey, you want all those like caramel spicy notes. And so that's, I like it booze forward for different reasons as I get older, right? Like I like it for flavor, not just for fun.
Nice. Yep.
Now, what is harder, because you've kind of done a lot of different things, as I said at the beginning. You run a kitchen, you owned a restaurant, you wrote a book, you crafted a cocktail that you were able to bottle. What's been the hardest one?
That's a great question. I mean, I've working backwards, I've learned a lot about the liquor industry with the bottled cocktails, which not necessarily all the stuff I wanted to know, the ins and outs, the red tape. But I loved putting together the juice is what we call it, what goes in the bottle. I loved doing that. It was such a learned lesson for me to think about putting all those flavors together, how to make them last in a bottle, how to make them exactly how I want it, how to describe what I want, But I would say, writing a book is something I needed a whole team of people to help with. You need the publisher, you need the editor, you need the food stylist, you need the recipe tester. It does take a village to write a cookbook. And running a restaurant is probably the hardest in every single way. Endurance, stamina, physically, mentally, you have to be the most organized and multitasking, talented person, the stress and the rewards, but there's a lot of sacrifices that go into restaurants. And I was, like I said, in restaurants most of my life. And so I got used to that and that was my home. But out of those three things, that's definitely the hardest.
I could only imagine.
Yeah. But the most rewarding, really.
Yeah, of course. So, speaking of that, take us back to the start of everything, right? To the beginning of your career. Where did the love of food, love of becoming, hey, I wanted to be a chef. Where's that come from?
Well, I was a chunky kid. I love to eat. I love to eat. And so, both my parents worked all the time. And so we would let ourselves into the house and we would always have snacks there. I think my mom was guilty that she was at work, felt guilty because she would load us up with all sorts of food. Food was the answer to everything in my house. If you're feeling great, let's have some food. If you're feeling sick, maybe you should eat a little something, for celebrating food. And so then I started working in a restaurant when I was in high school. Well, I wanted my own money. I wanted to, I wanted part of the action. My brother worked in a restaurant, so I started working where he did, and I just fell in love with the chaos of it all. The energy, the
Right.
excitement, the buildup of getting ready, and then, service is on and you serve everybody, and then the camaraderie of, a job well done afterwards. And, what would go on in the kitchen was like magic to me. And I just,
Yeah.
I wanted to be a part of that. And it was early on before, chefs and restaurants were, even regarded as a professional career. So it took a little while to, to convince my parents to let people really understand what I was interested in. I went to the Culinary Institute of America, which was, I was just up there last weekend, actually. It's a huge school now, but when I went, it's a small school. It was the Harvard of, culinary schools, but it was all European chefs. It was, very few American chefs that were teaching, and it was a very unique experience, but I fell in love with it
Yeah.
instantly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So hey, there's nothing wrong with, food being a solver for all things. I mean,
It really works most of the time.
Yeah.
little
For
soup
real.
if you're not feeling good, a little, certain comfort food when you're feeling down, and,
Yeah.
and then going out and celebrating. I mean, I think that's what Brandon and I do half the time anyway.
Yeah. A lot happens at
Same.
the table, like so much
Yeah.
happens at the table. And that's what I loved always
Absolutely.
about being a chef, was creating those experiences, those memories for people. People will come back and back and say, "Oh, I had the best meal," or "We had, my mom's birthday here," or whatever it may be. Like, just you create memories around food.
Absolutely. And I can imagine, being a chef at your caliber and at your level, and that is I guess in sports you win trophies and championships, right? And in food, it's the biggest I guess the accolade you could get is that somebody come up to you and say that's one of the best meals I've ever had in my life,
Yes, that's it.
right?
That's all.
Right.
That's
And that's what you do it for, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but
No, I mean,
uh,
absolutely. I mean, it's a hospitality industry, right? So we want
yeah,
to make people feel warm, welcome at home,
correct.
and we want to feed them and, give them a memorable night or
Yeah,
day or meal or
right.
whatever it may be. Um, because you never know what that is for them, You don't know what's going on at that table, and
You don't.
you could change that moment for them for the better. And it's a
Yep.
pretty cool superpower to have.
1,000%. I couldn't agree more. I
And
love that.
for you, as you talk about, like, you've done the Instagram, YouTube short videos and things like that, where kind of easy AF came from.
Yeah.
What's it like sharing your love of food and kind of your skill set and stuff with people? Showing people how you can do it, at home or wherever they're at.
It's great. I've over the years that I've gotten the opportunity to do cooking classes, cooking demonstrations, virtually having parties of people cooking through Zoom. It's so satisfying to teach somebody how to make or how to do something that they claim they'll never know how to do it, from start to finish. And so I just love teaching people and showing them that they can, like I just did a class last night of showing people how to make potato gnocchi. And, it seems like it's difficult and, really hard and intricate, but it's super, super, super simple to put together. And when people make it themselves with their hands and they plate it and they're like, I did this, it's so satisfying because, for me to show people that they can do it is such a joy, like they don't think they can. They think, oh, only Amanda can do it. Only these chefs can do it. Well, no, you can do it too. And it empowers them to get in their kitchen and cook. Where sometimes I think people look at their kitchen and they're like, that's not for me. I can't do anything in there, and you really can. And when we started doing the videos, it was 2019, and we continued to do them in 2020. And, it was really hard to do. My marketing manager, his name is Kedzie, he was helping me do it over Zoom. We would do them all in person typically, but when we were in lockdown, we did it over Zoom. And I was like, I don't know, should we even do this anymore? Because this is terrible time, and why are we even doing this? And, we got such good feedback from people saying, hey, not only do we enjoy watching you, but we're in our kitchens now more, and you're helping us learn how to cook. So, there was a lot of grateful, novice cooks out there that were taking those videos and taking them into their kitchen and using them. And that felt great to me, to be able to help people do something that they now love, enjoy, that's become a hobby. So and I also I think it's really fun, especially when you have a hands-on. When we finally get back in person and we're doing hands-on cooking, it's so fun. Everybody gets to make a mess. Then they get to eat. It's like, even if you make some ugly bowl of pasta, you're still going to sit down and eat it, and you're going to laugh about, what you did in the kitchen, and you're going to learn something.
Right.
I love it. I have such a good time teaching people how to cook.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's truly what it's about. For me, like I love that. Like I think that's like you hit it on the head. Like it's,
Yeah.
Anything that you have the passion for, and then you have the passion to teach them how to do what you like to do, like that. You got to figure it out.
Yeah. And it's also an exchange of ideas. It's nice, when you're talking to somebody about food, people always want to talk about food, and they want to talk about their recipe that they made last night, or the grandma's recipe that they make. And, people always come up to me and they want to share those stories. I don't know them at all, and they'll come up to me and they'll talk to me about a recipe that they've made or their family recipe. And it's just like this common connector, this common thread that we all have through food.
Yep.
I love it. And also, I feel like there's sometimes a common thread through this. As I've finished, I will say the the Negroni for me got much.
It gets better.
It got better as the ice melted, and for me, like it took that harshness off, rounded it out nicely, and it's gone now.
Yeah. Well, and that's
comparable to the. It's comparable to that old fashioned, right? It's like, once the ice melts into it, it melts everything out.
Yeah, what happens, and I love the science of food. So what was really interesting to me in creating cocktails is just the science of cocktails, and, just a little bit of ice and temperature and water, can expand the flavors and really open them up, when they're just tight and maybe they're a little too heavy, and then they just open up and they change, as you're drinking it, it can change and be different from the first sip to the last sip, which is really cool. And, also people that were stuck cooking in their kitchens during lockdown, they were also making cocktails, cocktail hour every day, like a little bit earlier every day, 3-4 o'clock. And I think that was also, a really cool learning experience, because people got way more into cocktails. Yeah, sure, you can open a nice bottle of wine and pour it, but it's kind of fun to mix a cocktail, make cool garnishes, put some salt around the glass, and just have a good time with that.
Yep. No, I agree. I definitely agree. We have a friend who started his own social media page just doing beer reviews and cocktails during COVID. I get it.
Yep. And now for the second one, because we're a little bit into this. I feel like I don't know, Brandon. Are you done with your first drink? I managed to be done with mine. So.
No, but it'll be all right.
All right. So I'm jumping the gun a little bit. So our second pour is the Manhattan. Brandon will show that lovely bottle off, but you want to talk a little bit about how the Manhattan came to be your version?
So I live in Manhattan. So that was definitely something that I wanted to do. And I thought of the progression of the night, actually, when I was thinking of starting off with the Negroni. then, maybe there was a fun margarita party going on. And then if you kept going, you were definitely going to end up in a brown, sort of boozy, dark speakeasy somewhere. And that just reminded me of a Manhattan. And I love the warm, sort of sweet vanilla, caramel, cherry notes that come out of drinking a Manhattan. And that to me is meant to sort of be the finisher. Yeah, it's really well rounded. And I'm learning more about drinking the brown alcohols. I wasn't always my first and foremost, saying that to two guys in Lexington, Kentucky. Uh, so I'm learning. And ironically, that's one of my favorites of the three that we make. It's really on point, and it's ready to go. You don't really need to do much of that. You could probably drink that neat.
Yeah. Oh no, I was getting ready to say that. You took
Yeah.
the words out of my mouth. Like I was saying, like that is good to go as is.
Yes.
Like some people with the Negroni will find it very bitter and they need to
Yes.
add the orange and whatever, sea
Right.
salt, whatever you want to do with it. But this the Manhattan is
Yes.
you don't need anything.
You don't need
You don't.
anything. I mean,
It's perfect.
obviously, cherry on top would
But
also help. And you could go with a classic maraschino, or you could go with a really beautiful, like Amarone
right.
cherry, spend a little and
Yep.
get those dark, beautiful cherries. But I've converted a lot of people who are not Manhattan drinkers to Manhattans. And I've also gotten a lot of really good comments from people who drink Manhattans and say, wow, that is really a good Manhattan. So that's a big compliment. And, again, we make our own vermouth. Um, and there's bitters in there that are very cherry forward. And it's just, I kept tasting it and I just wanted it to be round. And if I loved it, then I knew that everybody else would love it, because that wasn't necessarily my first choice, right? That's not always my first choice of drinking. I wouldn't order a Manhattan immediately. I might order the margarita or the Negroni first. But now, having this in the repertoire makes me so happy because I I would choose it.
Yep.
And I know a
Well,
lot
and
of people go for the brown, obviously, and like that brown base alcohol. And, I do feel like you could shake that over ice and serve it up and start the evening with that. That could be your first cocktail, or you just finish with that. And that's sipping, it's warm, it's kind of a digestive aid. It
Right.
helps you digest your meal. It's almost like a dessert in a way.
Yep. And even for our fans that are based here in Lexington or even Kentucky, that wants that old fashioned drinkers, right?
Sure.
It's very similar. Like I think the
mhm.
difference, and you could correct me, but I think the difference is vermouth versus simple syrup. I think
Yes.
that's probably the only difference.
Yes.
But a lot of people that hasn't tried a Manhattan should. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
They
if
should try
you
that one because it's a good
that
example.
one.
Yeah.
You
It's
don't even
a,
have to do anything. You just pour it from the bottle and we're ready to go.
well, that's
I was gonna say,
that's the fun part.
yeah, go for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
funny because Brandon's like, I can do it neat, and that's how the neat and mix started. He liked everything neat, I didn't,
Right.
and I have gradually over time trying enough things and doing enough things found what I have liked, and it's funny because I'm like, oh, I like this one over ice, kind of right off the start because it's nice and rounded and
Yeah.
kind of flavorful. So this hit me and you perfectly, Brandon, Mr. Neat, Mr.
Yep.
Mixed over here. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
this is you
That's
might
good.
have converted me to a Manhattan as well.
That's a
Yeah.
success right there. That's a success. And, we've talked a lot about food pairings for everything. And, Negroni, like I was saying, like potato chips and olives, the margarita, we always do, tortilla chips and guac with that. But, the Manhattan, I find that you could pair it with a piece of chocolate, a chocolate cake, something sweet, right? Sure. But I think it could go with steak. I think you can go with something hearty like a duck dish. Pairing food and cocktails is such a fun experiment. Wine, sure, like we said, for years and years and years, that's how we've been doing it. But more and more people are pairing food and cocktails, and I think it's great. I love it. And I think something like the Manhattan is a really cool challenge. Meats, rich meats that are a bit fatty, served a little bit rare even with the Manhattan is so, it's a great palate pleaser. It really goes well together.
Yep, I totally agree.
No, the other thing, I'm really enjoying this one. And you talked about how you got into cooking, and then you kind of grew into the love of trying different cocktails and things like that. When did you then have the idea for Freitag Cocktails? Like, when did that come about? Why did you want to go that route?
That's such a great question because when I was really excited about the onset of all these ready to pour, ready to drink, bottled cocktails, canned cocktails, and I kept buying and trying, when they were first coming out, and I was like, this is really cool. Oh, I love margarita. Let me try it. Hmm. Like this is really cool. Let's try this Negroni. All right. All right, let's try. There was a few like whiskey drinks here and there. But nothing was really hitting. And then I was like, I would really like to do this because any kind of beverage, I always have a tea, a coffee, a bubbly water. Like there's always beverages surrounding my desk, and so it just depends on the time of day. So I'm really interested in the beverage world in general, and I loved, I live in New York, so the speakeasies, the craft cocktail, that whole genre, that whole, last 15 years of that era coming up is so much fun. Like to go and it's a show of experience and garnishes and glassware and ice programs. And I just wanted to be a part of that. So coincidentally, the distillery that I distill with, Kentner Spirits, Chris Joseph is the owner, had reached out to me and said, hey, we did something with Charles Woodson. We'd love to do something with you. And it was right when I was really looking to get into this world and this business and this industry. And he is a small distiller in San Diego. And, he does all his own infusions of, vermouths and bitters. And, we made something for the margarita called a lime distillate. And, it's just like being a mad scientist, being in the distillery. So, we paired to do this. And again, a lot happened over 2020 where we were talking about flavors. He would send me little bottles of things to play with at home, and put together flavors. So it was a lot of experimentation, across the country. And then I finally got to go into the distillery, a year later and mix and blend and, get the cocktails done, design the label, get it on there and launch it. So it was just putting it out there in the universe that it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do it better. I wanted to do better than what was out there. And I thought, well, from what I had seen, there was no chefs doing it. And I was like, what's better than a chef's palate to put together flavors and put them in a bottle?
Well, I was gonna say, like you said, the kitchen and the bar kind of go hand in hand, and sometimes in a lot of those nicer places they use leftover kitchen,
Yes.
Ingredients to make things. So it had to be cool for you to kind of be a chef in the cocktail world, putting all those flavors together.
It was so much fun. And I don't know about you, but if I ever have people over, my kitchen is the bar. Your kitchen becomes the bar. It's all one and the same,
100%. That's both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How did you get, just, asking for myself and all of us, but how did you get into, what happened? How did you get involved with Food Network? Like, what happened in that scenario?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So that's really cool to me. Like how, all right, you started as a chef, you did all this work, and then all of a sudden, boom, like we're on TV.
It's true. It's funny because a lot of the young chefs who kind of want to be in this world will say, oh, how do you become a top judge? And I'll say, well, first you got to be a chef for like 30 years. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and they don't want to hear that. They want to be on, they want to be instant stardom, they want to just go. So, that for me, my journey was, after being in restaurants for a very long time, I was working at a restaurant in downtown Manhattan in 2008, and the Food Network actually called and asked me if I wanted to be on Iron Chef America, like do a battle.
Wow.
And they called directly to the restaurant, and somebody said, "Chef, you got a phone call." And I took the call, and they were like, "Hey, we're reaching out. We'd love to have you do an Iron Chef battle." And I was like, "Cool, thanks, but no thanks." And I hung up the phone because I'd been watching Iron Chef. I watch Iron Chef Japan, I watch Iron Chef America, and like, no way am I gonna do that. No way. I'd never done anything like it. No culinary competitions, nothing. And then, at the time, it's a very, very competitive industry in New York. So we had a public relations person for the restaurant. And a couple hours later, he called me and he was like, "Hey, did you just say no, to the Food Network?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't want to do that." And he's like, "I think it would be great for the restaurant if you, did this battle, wore your chef coat with the name of the restaurant on." And I was like, "Oh, man. Okay." So the very first thing I ever did was Iron Chef America against Bobby Flay. And it was a wild, wild experience. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of nerves.
No.
It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
And, I lost only by 1 point, which was pretty good for my first
No.
competition out. And luckily, I've come back to beat him in his own house since then.
Absolutely.
And then, again, another sort of coincidence, when I was working at this very same restaurant, the woman who created Chopped, her name is Linda Lee, came into dinner with actually some regulars of mine. And they brought her in. And we met, and she said, "I'm working on the show, and do you want to see the pilot?" And I was like, "Sure." And I remember taking it to my parents' house, and we watched the pilot together, and we're all kind of like, "That's kind of silly, but why not? Just say yes to the opportunity." And that was at the very beginning of season 1. We started filming season 1 of Chopped in 2008, and it started airing in 2009. And nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody knew what it was going to become. And, we've been going now for 15 years, over 900 episodes and countless ingredients and chefs and tournaments and battles. And, ever since then, I've done multiple competitions. I competed to become an Iron Chef twice. I've been on Beat Bobby Flay, Tournament of Champions. I've competed on Chopped. So it really was something that just, I got in it at the right time. I was obviously in the right place, right time. I say that, and a lot of my friends will correct me and say you worked really hard for it, but it wasn't something I was seeking out. It wasn't like I was going on casting calls. It wasn't like I was trying to do this. I was so busy at the restaurant, head down and focused. I wasn't looking for it, and it just so happened to be these opportunities that came my way, and I embraced them, and I loved it. I loved it. It wasn't like, yes, I said no at first, not knowing, and I loved it because it reminded me of restaurants. Reminded me of being in the kitchen, the team. You make something, you put it together, and then you release it out into the world, and people like your show, then it keeps going.
I mean, that is amazing, honestly. And for me, it's like I learned how to cook just by watching Food Network. Honestly, I'm not kidding.
No,
and
it's true.
I learned the lingo. I learned all this stuff, and I'll go on vacation with my wife, and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's this, is this." And she's like, "You're from southeastern Kentucky. How do you know that?" And I was like, "Food Network." And and I'm like, just honestly, Iron Chef looks like probably, just because I try to cook for my friends, and John knows this, and all the friends that are listening, I cook for my friends on a regular basis. And if I say dinner's at 7, I'm lucky to get it on the table at 10.
Uh-huh.
But we have all the cocktails to
Yes,
bring us
everybody's
along.
toasty time dinners on the table.
Yeah. So I can't imagine how hard it would be if you're under that time constraint on, what is it, 45 minutes or whatever it is, 30 minutes on, you got to get this dish out and you got these select ingredients to do. Like,
Yep.
How hard? I mean, honestly, how hard would that be? Or how hard was it?
It is still hard. I still, I competed on Tournament of Champions season 5, which just aired. It's still a massive adrenaline rush. The nerves just spike, and the time just goes. It's just fascinating to me that myself or anybody gets anything done or on the plate. And what I came to find after doing so many competitions is that, obviously as a chef, I've always worked really well under pressure, but even more so in that 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute time zone, you are so freaked out that you get an idea right away. Your brain has to work in this way, and then you have to move fast. You have no choice. And then, when I first started doing competitions and I would go back to work at the restaurant, and we'd have to change a menu seasonally or whatever, and I'd be like, no, I'll get to it. I was so used to working in that time frame of being under pressure. Like, you want that, you need that, you get addicted to it almost. So it's not for everybody. I know a lot of my chef friends are like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to try it. That's not me. I can't. So there's a certain breed of, crazy
right.
that loves that feeling and loves, the competition. You get a little taste for it though, and you want more. You just want more.
Right.
With anything, that sort of spikes your adrenaline. If you're an adrenaline junkie, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of pressure. Not only the pressure to just make the food nice, make it tasty to the judges, get it on the plate, make it pretty, but what you don't see is there's 2 or 3 cameras running around with you while you're doing it in your face. And so that took a lot to get used to as well.
Right.
And you have to ignore it all and just zone in and focus.
Well, and it's probably not like your traditional kitchen that you would run in a restaurant where you have all this time you prep everything, obviously, to make meal service move along quickly.
Yes.
And you're doing it all on the fly.
We are. And, a lot of times what we say as judges for the contestants on Chopped who are so disappointed in themselves if they're chopped and they move on, and we like to make sure that they hear us saying, like, we know, and hopefully the viewer hears us saying, this is not normal. This has no reflection on what kind of chef you are, because classically, everything about a chef is preparation and planning. My school motto is preparation is everything. You prep, you plan, sometimes for a couple of days in advance, to make that special meal or to make that menu. You have a whole team of people, there's a lot that goes into restaurant, and, and it's so unrealistic. So we every once in a while have to remember to tell the chefs this, because they get so frustrated with themselves. And it's like, this is an unusual circumstance. This is not ordinary. And this doesn't reflect on what kind of a chef you are. And there's so much pressure because of the public eye. Sometimes they look at it that way and like, oh, I don't want to go to that chef's restaurant. They were chopped. And I'm like, no. That is not at all what that means. They had gummy bears and fish heads and, licorice, and they're supposed to make a dish. It's not like that.
Yeah.
That's one where you're like, hey, you try it at your home, see what you do.
And a lot of people play Chopped at home, which I love when people tell me those stories. It's like, oh, we play, we give each other little baskets, or we've done it for our kid's birthday. And I'm like, wow, that's wild.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because, a lot of just normal people don't understand. They just show up at a restaurant and they expect to be served good food, right? They don't understand
what it takes.
What it takes, the preparation, the work involved, that it may have took 3 days to braise that meat or
Yeah.
whatever it was, to get it to that level of quality that it needs to be served on a dish at the restaurant.
It's so
But a lot of people just show up in that mind. They just get that narrow mind, and they're just like, well, we just show up at a restaurant, we pay, and it should be good all the time.
right. And it should be fast and it should be perfect.
Yeah. But they don't understand what goes on behind the scenes to
Mhm.
make it work.
I always say that everybody should work in a restaurant just once. If you're ever going to eat in a restaurant, you should work in a restaurant because then you'll
Yeah.
really know what it takes to put it
Yeah.
all together. It truly,
I
truly takes a team of people. It really
I
does.
I
I haven't.
cannot imagine.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've caught things on fire just in my house by doing stuff myself. So I can't imagine what else is going on there. Now I do have a fun question for you, Amanda. Is it true that you collect restaurant menus? Is
I
that true?
do. I love collecting menus. I was so sad for a while when it was just barcode,
Yeah.
and I've collected menus sometimes without the restaurant knowing. Let's just say it that way. There's so many beautiful menus out there, and for when I first started in my career, my young chef life, chefs would put a lot of work into menus. They would put artwork on the outside, the way the font was, the way the food was described, and for me, it was also memorabilia. Yes, we take photos of the food when we're in a restaurant, but a lot of times I like to put my phone down and just enjoy. And you have a lengthy meal with cocktails in the beginning, cocktails in the end, wine in the middle. You kind of forget what you might have eaten, and then you look back at that menu and you're like, oh yeah. And also, it's inspiration. I collect cookbooks, but I also collect menus. So if I look back from 20 years ago at a menu, and I'm like, oh, that dish was amazing. I'm going to try and recreate that. Or even just to see trends come around. It's like collecting records, right? Vinyl. You look at it and you're like, oh, wow, look at that. This new chef is doing that same dish. They think they're doing something new, like it's a reminder. So it's really like a scrapbook for me to collect menus, and I have some really beautiful ones from all over the world. So I usually bring a big purse and and collect, but
That's
now
the
I think
best.
restaurants know that people take the menus or want the menus. Sometimes you'll have a tasting menu and at a very high-end restaurant, and they will actually print you a menu and give it to you. So it's a nice way of remembering.
That is too funny. So I gotta ask, with that, like clearly when you get to go different places and collect those, what's your favorite place that you get to travel to and do stuff at?
Ooh, that's a great
Put you
question.
on the spot.
I know. Well, I've been so fortunate to be able to travel a lot, and my favorite food city in the US used to be San Francisco, but it's changing because, so many great chefs are venturing out on their own into different states, more, in Philadelphia, in Birmingham, Alabama, in Louisville. I mean, Chef Ed Lee is one of my favorite chefs, like in smaller cities in other states that are not necessarily, New York, San Francisco, LA. And I've had some of my best meals, in Detroit or, these Minneapolis. And so American chefs are just really stepping up, which is really wonderful to see. But of course, I love my European travels. You can't, it's really hard to beat going to Italy and exploring that beautiful, simple, perfect food. I guess if you said, where would I go tomorrow, that might be it, or Japan and go see something that is untouchable. Like I could never cook that way because it's an art to them, and to see that and to see the regard that they have for product and food, or to travel to, Ireland, to a place where the food gets such a bad reputation, and I got to go there and explore and meet other chefs, and I loved everything about it. The food was excellent, the product was good, like to learn. So it's hard to say if I have a favorite. because they're all so, so, so good and so different. And I haven't seen everywhere yet. I'm still looking. I'm still looking.
Yep.
I'm still eating.
Yep. It's funny how you say, Italy is just so simple and all that stuff. Because I have just begun. I've been making my homemade pasta sauce for probably the last 6 months, and I've just basically copied it off of Marcella Hazan,
Oh, yes.
and just simple. And I just like, it can't be that simple, can it? But it really is that simple.
It-
Like to make it, just tomatoes,
Garlic.
salt, pepper, butter, garlic, whatever you want. It's amazing how simple it is and how good it is.
Yep.
And then, so that's one of my favorite things. I'm getting ready to get into homemade pasta, so I'll probably be
You can
watching
do
some of your
it.
videos.
Yes, yes. I
Um,
have a
so
homemade pasta video. Definitely
I
look
love
at it. You're gonna have a blast. I love making
I can't
pasta.
wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yes.
Can't wait. So what is your favorite homemade pasta to make?
I like making fettuccine or pappardelle. Pappardelle is fun because you can just cut it by hand and
Yeah,
it can just
absolutely.
be big ribbons and it doesn't have to be perfect. So that you can do without even, too many
Right.
gadgets.
Yeah, I have absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Honestly.
The thing about simple Italian food is their ingredients are so good. You can't skimp on the olive oil. You got to get the best tomatoes. Since there's only
Correct.
2 or 3 ingredients in something, you have to get the best for it. And that's what they do so well.
100%. That's why I was blown away because John knows this, and all the friends that are listening, that I geek out when it comes to cooking food, and I'm the nerd.
He
in the
goes
kitchen, honestly.
bougie. He's a little bougie when it comes to where he'll shop for things and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yes.
because when I have my friends over, I want them to have the best experience. And John and all my friends will tell you is that when I cook for my friends, who's the last one to eat?
You.
You are.
Me.
Mhm.
The chef. I always say it. It's like I'm
Yes.
the chef. Now, I don't know if that's a trademark in the industry or not,
It
but
is.
in my house,
It
I'm the
absolutely
last one to eat.
Well, what I always say is, I'll cook and I'll taste and make sure everything's perfect. And by the time I sit down, I'm not
Yep.
eating because I'm full because I've tasted it the whole time. So I'm usually just
Right.
having a drink or a glass of wine because I'm not hungry by the time I serve the dinner.
Exactly.
If you're good
And
enough,
for
you taste as you
Yep.
go. Yeah.
Yep. And for me, I really don't care about me eating it or tasting it. It's just that I worry about all my friends and family. It's like, is it good enough?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Exactly.
what do you think about it? Like, I want them to be happy. So,
That is a
um,
trademark of a chef, and people always say, "Oh, you must eat so well. You must have the best food." And like, chefs don't eat. We're too busy, and that's why there's that late night spot or that fried chicken place or the 24-hour Chinese restaurant that you'll see chefs at. That's why.
Yep.
You
I'm
would-
pointing at
you
him
just-
because he
you
knows
just-
which one it is.
Yep.
In
You
Lexington,
just-
he knows which one it is.
right around the corner from my house is the best fried chicken in Lexington, Kentucky.
There you go.
But that leads me to my next question. What is your favorite late night food, drunk food, if you will? If you had any options, available, what would it be?
Well, as a New York City girl, it's always pizza for me.
Yeah.
We have really good pizza here. We got really bad pizza here, and it's good pizza. It happens to be pizza. I'm also a huge fan of burgers. Like I'm a burger fry girl. Like it is probably one of my
Okay.
biggest comfort foods. And I love the fact that that all of the high-end chefs are doing their burger joints and burgers are becoming a thing and highly regarded as a really good food, and I love it. French fries and a burger like sets you straight
Can't beat that.
every time. But yeah, I'll take fried chicken. And Chef Ed Lee took me to a fried chicken place at a very late hour once in Louisville. And there was bulletproof glass and a line out the door. So, but it was delicious. It was delicious.
Which, by the way, I will say that the world or the country is sleeping on Louisville, Kentucky when it comes to Food Town.
I agree.
Like it is very, very underrated.
I agree. I had some great meals the last time I was there. I plan on having some more when I visit again. And, you know, I think that you have to be open-minded and you have to explore and you have to taste and you know, you can't just categorize, right?
No.
You can't stereotype. There's a real culinary scene going on in Louisville and everywhere across our country. It's gotten so much better. As hard as it's gotten for the chefs in the big cities to survive, I think it's been beneficial to everybody else because then they'll go and find a way to be creative in a town that can support them economically.
Yep, 100%.
I love
If
it.
it looks good, eat it, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, or if it drinks well, as mine is on.
Hey, I love that
works.
fancy glasses right there.
And as we wrap up, why did you go the route of the Negroni, the Manhattan, and then the Margarita for your kind of the trio that you launched? Why those three?
Yeah,
Is it
those
just the
three,
progression of the meal?
those were definitely a progression of a night for me. But also places Negroni really represents Italy to me. The Margarita represents Mexico, which some of my favorite foods have come from Mexico, and the Manhattan is reminds me of the sexy, moody after hours drink and city that I live in. So I'm hoping I would really love to do, and I know it's so simple, but I'd really love to do a dirty martini in a bottle. And because I think all I can see is this bottle in the freezer. That's like my visual for it. Like I just see this bottle in the freezer. It's perfectly balanced. It's got some olive juice, and then it's frozen, almost ice chips, and then you just pour it into a glass. I love it.
Sounds like a winner to me.
Yeah, I think that could be my next one, and we could send some olives around with it.
Absolutely.
Just put that next to the bottle on the shelves, and
Yes.
a little 2-for-1 combo. And
Exactly.
for those that want to find it, where can they find Freitag Cocktails?
So easy enough. It's freitagcocktails.com. If you can't find that and you're just looking for me, there's a shop button on amandafreitag.com. The best part about us being e-commerce is you can get it anywhere. You can have it delivered to your door. You just order online. But we are in stores in Kroger in Louisville, Kentucky. We're in stores a little bit in California, and in May, hopefully, we'll be in some stores in New York City. So we're spreading around into retail across the country. But to me, the best part is getting it delivered right to your door.
It makes it easy as easy as.
Easy as.
Well, Amanda, this has been awesome. It's been a pleasure to talk about your story, how you got into food and everything, and just two great drinks as well. So we
Thank
really
you guys.
appreciate
Well,
it.
I really hope to see you at Bourbon and Beyond so we can have a drink together.
That is our goal.
That is our goal.
Well, it's not too far away for you guys, just a hop, skip, and a jump. So we'll have a
Very
toast.
close.
We'll raise a glass, and we can
And
talk
listen to
more
some good
about
music.
because we
Because
could do that.
to me, that's
and
the
then
trifecta.
and you have all of our favorite things.
Absolutely. Food, booze, and music, the trifecta. If we're talking Kentucky, there we go. Well, we really appreciate it, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Mine too. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.